All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do a video about independent comics. This one is 5 independent comics that are undervalued. A lot of these big companies, they're putting out all these big action movies and TV shows and now streaming services. DC's got a new streaming service out. Disney's going to have their own new streaming service, a la Netflix style. However, there's lots of movie companies and television producing companies that can't afford to buy these big Marvel character properties or DC character properties. So they go to independent ones, right? They go and find these little independent places and see about grabbing up some of those characters and making a movie. Um, so not all these comics have to do with a television show or movie. A few of them do. A couple of them are just based solely on, or mostly on what the comic is, the collectability of it, because of comic collectability, not because it's a flipper for movie status and stuff, but that the comic itself is important to comics. So let's take a look at the first one. Let's start with The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, #1. So The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, #1. I know there was a movie already, had Sean Connery in it and some other actors, and it was really did not follow this comic book. The characters were different. They left out some characters. They changed some characters. They changed the personality of other characters. It really didn't follow this comic book, which is in my opinion, a bad move on the movie scriptwriter's parts, because this comic book is excellent. It is an excellent read if you ever want to just read a really great series. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is, highly recommend reading it. However, it's also one of those easy ones to be picked up for a remake of a movie, right? People did have interest in it a little bit. If the movie itself wasn't so bad, I think it would have done well. Also have all these monster movies coming out and people trying to develop kind of a universe around that. Well, there's a lot of those kind of characters in this. And, they're going to try and think of what's their Justice League, what's their Avengers, right? For that kind of monstery stuff. And the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen isn't a bad choice, especially if they incorporate the more of Alan Moore's writing. Like this is, Alan Moore and Kevin O'Neill really, just fantastic writing in this book. Really too bad that the first movie didn't take advantage of this, basing the script off of this. But yeah, if this ever gets picked up for a movie or some kind of a TV show because of the characters who are kind of in it, yeah, you could see this jumping up quite a bit. I bought this right out from my local comic shop. I'm positive I only paid $8 for it. That was about a year ago. Still can find them in dollar bins and stuff. This one's in a pretty nice condition. Um, yeah, very undervalued. If it ever gets picked up, I could see it being a $50, $60 book. To our next one we're going to do is Macross #1. So Macross #1, Comico, comic that was published. Comico does a lot of comic books based on manga, right, and anime. This one's from 1985. Again, a lot of people's first introduction to anime was Robotech and Macross, right? So get a lot of people nostalgic for it, sorry. It's a really great comic. It's totally based, on that 80s show. First time it was in an English adaptation, right? I believe there's some manga comics based on Robotech that predate this one for sure. But this is the first English one. Like I said, really that nostalgia 80s cartoon toy kind of era that people see, like the same nostalgia they have for G.I. Joe and Transformers and stuff like that is here in the Robotech and Macross. Great comic to own. Got this one $20. It's really nice shape. You can easily find it off eBay for cheap. Um, I've heard rumors that they're finally settling down who has all the rights and this and that, which usually, if they're putting effort into that after 20 years, it's because they've got some kind of an idea for the, possibly for the thing, for the property, right? Possibly. I'm not saying, I don't start any rumors saying there's going to be anything to do with Robotech, but when you start to see stuff like that, that's time to jump. Not when they announce a movie. After they announce it, this book's going to take a bigger jump, right? Plus, it's very cool to have in your collection, right? It's very nostalgic, like I said, very nostalgic to people who were, 12 years old in the 80s and their first exposure to anime and stuff, right? All right, here we have this guy. Star Slayer number 2. Star Slayer number 2 from Pacific Comics, 1982. First appearance of the Rocketeer. Right, so the Rocketeer did have its own movie. It's actually a much better movie than people give it credit for. I do enjoy the movie The Rocketeer. It's very cult classic now. Came out in 1991. But they're talking about all kinds of stuff with the Rocketeer. Again, it's a cheap property. I think Disney actually does own the movie rights for the Rocketeer still. I'm not too sure on that. But they're talking about making a TV show or a streaming service show, which would be more for kids. However, kids' comics get picked up with more adult themes and stuff like that as well. The Rocketeer, really great character. Really, really like the character and like this comic. Star Slayer, not so much. He's a little bit of a, not the greatest character. A little bit hacky, a little bit cliche, but the Rocketeer, gotta love the Rocketeer. Anyways, found this one. I actually found this one at a flea market for $1. Right, so if you can find it for $1, that's great. If you can find it for $10, I'd still buy it. You're gonna find it cheap on eBay, right? People still haven't caught on that this is weird comic from Pacific Comics. Just might be the first appearance of a major character like the Rocketeer. All right. And, so this is one of those comics that's talking about. It's not ever going to get made into a movie. Definitely, but it's a really important character, especially to the artist. That's MR.A. Right, so this is the very first self-published comic from Steve Ditko. He really went to town, just let MR.A. all out on the page. There are several incarnations of MR.A. The Question is based off of MR.A. Rorschach is based off of MR.A. Alan Moore has come out and said that. There's a movie, documentary style movie out about Steve Ditko, and they really expound on who MR.A. was to Steve Ditko. Quite an important character to the artist. The comic book itself is a little preachy. Gotta admit it's a little preachy, but just fantastic illustrations. Like Steve Ditko, just you could tell he really had mastered his craft and really loved MR.A. Very much, this character is very much like Rorschach, a little more black and white with his good evil judgments, and people should be killed. And Steve Ditko's own beliefs really come through in this character and his dialogue. But really hard to find this comic in really nice condition. I'm lucky to have this copy that's almost near mint, I would say. MR.A. fanzine came out in 1973, right? Self-published by Steve Ditko. Really hard to find in high grades, like I said, because of the very low print run. Even tough to find out of sort of that tri-state area. Most of these were sold in New York. Lots of them didn't get sold at all because zines weren't a big popular thing at the time. But this comic's really important to to Steve Ditko, and MR.A. is I think is a more important character than people give him credit for, just based on who he was to Steve Ditko. And this issue particularly because of Steve Ditko's such fantastic art in it. So if you can find a copy of this, if you ever come across it in a used store or anything like that, you know, grab it up. This is a super, super nice comic. Very fine, near mint condition. I believe I paid $35 for it. You can find it for less than that for sure. But yeah, I would grab it up because there's not many of these out there. And once they kind of, people start clicking into who Mr. A was, there'll be less of them for sale for sure. And now this one I have a little bit of a bitch about. Oh, drive me nuts. So I got this next comic in the mail recently. And came all the way from Australia. Seller sent it to me in this. Right, this alone. Here, let me just back it out to us a little bit. Beat up envelope. Not even a piece of cardboard in it. What? Please, sellers. I mean, it came from all the way from Australia. Right there. Australia. I live in Canada, so in the mail for quite a while and beat the heck up. This is the comic that came into it. Ooh, as you can see, she's a little bent. It's a little dinged up, a little bent. Can't get all the way from Australia. Just one great piece. This was a really fine copy of this issue. Anyways, this issue is Wits End number 3. It is a Wally Wood fanzine. Wally Wood was a really big artist with EC during all the times when they were doing all the big horror comics and sci-fi comics and stuff. Really famous artist, comic book artist. He decided to get a zine going that encompassed a whole bunch of different artists that were really great at the time. And let them kind of run wild in a comic book that doesn't have the comic code authority or have to be judged by editors at a big comic company like DC or Marvel. So this is actually the first appearance of Mr. A, done by Steve Ditko. The comic we just saw there is the number 1 issue. This one is his actual first appearance. This cover's by Wally Wood. In here is also original art from Frank Frazetta, later artists that came and did stuff in here from Bernie Wrightson, and Dr. Seuss actually did the very first comic art for and he did that in here. Not this issue. It's a different issue where Dr. Seuss is. I think that's number 8. I'm going to buy that one too just because I like Dr. Seuss and I want to see what he did for a comic book. I believe he did some more, but not until, you know, in the last few years was he involved with comic books, mostly stuck with children illustration. So, again, hard to find. Dark black color is hard to get. I'm lucky that none of the damage kind of creased anything to break any color. I'm going to take this down, see if I can get her pressed out, get her looking in much better shape. Now, I have every right to send this comic back and get a refund if I want. This is a hard comic to find, and I'm going to keep it because I didn't pay a whole lot for it. It took a long time to come from Australia, and I'm going to probably use it in a video to just see how effective comic pressing can be. And I also got PGX comics I might submit to the new CGC crossover service and see how that goes and do a little video about that as well. Anyway, if you can find this one, definitely grab it. You definitely can find it on eBay for under $40. Yeah, buy it up. I mean, it's a really important comic. Probably the greatest fanzine of all time is Wits End. Anyways, that's our little video for today. Thanks for watching. We're going to do some more videos soon. And yeah, this is Mr. Miracle. See ya.